Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks exciting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. Oh, and just one more thing before we go. Please consider like, commenting, and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. But now with all that out of the way, let's carry on with the video. Okay, so when we start off with this miniature, you can see I've just added a little bit of texture to the base, and all that is just sand from my driveway, and then I've just primed over it. And the good thing about these miniatures too is they're already pre-primed, so we can get straight into painting. So starting off with some tan flesh here, what we want to be doing is covering everywhere, of course, where you can see any flesh exposed. And you can see here with our monk, he's showing a lot of skin, so there's quite a bit of area to cover here with our tan flesh, just making sure we hit all those areas in the right places. Then once we've painted up the first layer of skin, we're going to come in now with some deck tan. And our deck tan we're going to be using for the underlayer of his clothing here. As you can see, they're very far down sort of robes. We want to be doing that very bottom layer, and that's going to be all in the deck tan, making sure that we get it everywhere that we want to, because there is a lot of folds and waves in the cloak as he's doing a nice dynamic pose. So we want to make sure we definitely get those in with a nice coat of paint. And then with those bottom layer of the robes complete, we're going to come in now with some basalt grey. And this is going to be for a small sort of detail that's going to be quite hard to see. And that's for the under layer of this nice sort of big belt area that he has here. There's a very small edging to this whole area, and we want to be painting that in the basalt grey. It can be a little bit hard to see on camera. You can see it there nice and sculpted in. You can see I've got a nice fine tip brush to really try and get as much of this work as you can. And if you do accidentally get it back anywhere you don't want it to, you can come back in with that deck tan and tidy it up. And then once we have the underlayer of that belt done, we're going to come back in with some barbarian flesh, and all we're going to be doing is a highlight on the step. So this is basically we're coming in and we're going to be giving a majority covering with the barbarian flesh over top of the area where we've already done in the tan flesh, really trying to help our highlighting techniques here. And I'm trying this new style where I'm going to be highlighting most of the way up on certain places and then placing a wash over top with hopefully getting a good blend over it. And you can see I'm doing a great job because you can definitely see behind my thumb because it's a nice new secret technique I've learned. So just want to make sure I keep it safe from you guys. But anyway, we're just trying to get those highlighted areas, especially where the sun is going to naturally hit. And then once we've done that, we're going to come in now with some cobalt skin, which is even lighter tone again, and we're just going to be hitting the absolute highest point, so nowhere near as much as we did with the barbarian flesh, so like the tips of the nose, the very top of the head and the brow, the very tips of the knuckles on the fingers, just very small places like that, really keeping it controlled and only into those absolute highest points so it doesn't become the main skin color. Okay, so now we have the skin done. What we're going to do now is coming in with some kantor blue. And kantor blue we're going to be using for the nice visual pop of color into this piece. And that's doing it over these drapes and stuff over his robes. As well as that, we're also going to be using it across his arm banding sort of coverings that he has on him. Now, one thing to notice is these arm coverings go all the way up to his shoulders, and he has straps holding them in. And I accidentally painted his shoulders in our skin colors, so you can avoid painting over his skin like me and just leaving those areas because they're definitely sort of armor padding, not actual shoulders exposed. So you can save a little bit of skin painting there. Then once we have those bits of the design painted up, we're going to come in now with some averland sunset. And for the averland sunset, what we're going to be doing is he has this nice sort of very fine detailed bit of nice decorative rope and string going across him, and that's very, very, very small. So you can see I'm trying to keep the very tip of my brush on this, just gliding over it, more catching it on the edge of the tip rather than actually using the tip itself, because it can bend and go places where we don't want it to. So I'm more using that edge to really try to catch that very small detail of that nice rope going around his area. And we want to be just picking out the arm bands as well. Okay, so once we've done those details, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to come in with some cavalry brown, which is a nice reddish brown, so it's going to help interact with these colors here that we've already got onto our nice brightly colored monk here, trying to go with a nice visual appearance and keep him quite bright and colorful. So cavalry brown is going to help with this, being a reddish brown. It's going to help contrast against the colours with our blues and our yellows that we've got on here. And as you can see, again, I'm just coming in with a fine tip brush and really catching at the edge of the tip of my brush rather than the actual tip itself, especially in these sort of details where it's very, very thin straps across his chest and everywhere. So don't be afraid to move the miniature in funny angles to really get those straps in any angle you can possibly get them. And then with those straps complete, we're going to coming in now with some dark green. And for the dark green, we're just going to be using it in two areas. And one of the main areas is these bands he has on his arms here. On the end of them is sort of like a beaded jewel here. It's a little bit hard to see the sculpting in it. It's a little bit muddy here. So I'm going with these nice sort of like jade beads around his wrist. So what we're going to be doing is just painting in those areas of the wrist in the nice green there, because we want that nice jade green to help also give a pop of colour in there as well, because it's going to be crazy with colours. And as well as that, we also want to be painting this front sort of bit of cloth that he has on him as well. And then once we've done that, we're going to come in now with some mephiston red, adding in even more colour to this miniature, because I want him to be a nicely brightly coloured monk. He's not afraid of hiding or anything like that. He's going to be out in your face. And all I'm going to be doing is painting up this little area here, which I believe is a scroll. So that's the way I'm painting up, sort of like a nice red capsuled scroll on him. So just coming in there, being very, very careful not to get it anywhere where we don't want it to. So use a smaller brush if you have to. And then once we've done that, we're going to come in now with some dark stone. And for the dark stone, all we're going to be doing is we're going to be painting up the shoes of our monk here. And you can see he's got them just poking out underneath his robes that he's wearing. So being careful, getting into those very fine areas. So if you need to get a smaller brush, don't be afraid to do that as well. And you can see I've already using a nice small fine tip brush so I can get into those areas anyway. Okay, now we've got his boots completed. We're going to come in now with some retributor armour. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be painting the handles of his blades that he has here in his hand, being very careful because I've got a nice sort of design on them as well that lead into the actual blade as well. As well as that, he has sort of a nice ornamental sort of ring with a bit of rope wrapped around it. So I'm going to be painting that in gold as well. Then once we have those gold areas picked out, we're going to come in now with some gunmetal grey. And of course, all we're going to be doing is painting up the actual sword that he has on him too. So just the blades themselves, coming in with that gunmetal. And that's the only area we're going to be using our gunmetal on there. But of course, remember to be careful. These do wrap around his body very, very closely. So we want to avoid getting any of that gunmetal onto any of the skin or anything like that. So just slow down and take your time if you need to. You're just a bit afraid of touching that paint to somewhere you don't need to. And then once we have his blades done, we're going to start moving on to some wash. So starting off with some reikland fleshshade, and of course we're going to use some reikland fleshshade for the actual flesh itself. So this is nice and simple. As you can see, I've got a nice smaller brush here to do my wash, which is basically the same brush I've just been using to paint with. But it's nice and small and it's got that finer edge, and I want to be very careful and controlled since there are so many areas that overlap one another, and I only want to be getting them washed into very selected spots. And as well as that, we also want to be placing the reikland fleshshade over any of the gold areas as well to really help enrich that gold colour. Then once that wash is all dry, we're going to come in now with some nuln oil. And for our nuln oil, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be covering up most of the miniature here. We're pretty much all of his clothing and his weapons. We want to be giving it a nice good coverage of nuln oil, because rather than reikland fleshshade where it's going to make him look more dirty and grimy and stuff like that, I want to keep him sort of reasonably pristine. He's a monk who takes care of himself, and I want those washes to be more of just dark shadows than actually sort of like battle damage or anything like that. And then once we've done that, we're going to come in now with some highlighting, starting off with some kantor blue. And what we're going to be doing is, of course, hitting those high spots, those nice ridges, and everywhere that we can see carved in. See, I've got a nice fine tip on my brush so I can really pick out those high points of detail. So you can see here a nice flat bit on the shoulder that's facing the sun, so it's going to be a good area to get in that highlight. And it's just a matter of going around the model, finding these areas where we want to have those highlights, paying a lot more attention to the edges of things, especially if they're in sort of the sunlight. Okay, now with all those blue highlights done, we're going to come in now with some deck tan, and we're going to re-highlight back up his robes that he's wearing, the under section of them, and you can see that in these areas we've got some very nice high points of folds and waves in the actual clothing because he's in this nice dynamic pose, so we've got a lot of them to pick from here. So just a matter of going around with your brush and really trying to go along with the edge of your brush rather than the tip of your brush, so you can really get those highest points of the highlights, and just spending a little bit of time because there is a lot of them here, and just picking out those ones that look like they're naturally going to help out the miniature. And then once we've done that, we're going to come in now with some dark green, and we're just going to be doing pretty much the exact same thing we did with our last highlights, and just hitting those top areas of the nice folds. There is one difference though when it comes to doing our jade beads that we're doing here. Rather than sort of skimming along the edges like with folds and stuff, I'm actually going to be dotting in the raised areas to try and make them more look like the jade beads that are depicted in the actual artwork of the miniature, since they're a little bit muddy and hard to tell. So hopefully dotting in those spots will make them look a little bit more realistic. And then once we've done that, what we're going to be doing is we're coming in with some averland sunset, doing the exact same thing again, hitting those highlights and stuff. But when it comes to doing the actual rope parts itself, I'm going to be doing the same technique I just did with our jade beads, and that's sort of dotting along the areas of high points across the nice detailed part of the rope. So sort of just hitting those very top cross knots of the rope, trying to make it pop out a little bit more on the actual piece. Instead of such fine detail, I'm trying to add in a little bit more life to it. And then once we've done that, all I'm going to be doing now is coming in with some shining silver, and I'm just going to be applying some highlights to the actual blades itself. And I'm just going to be doing it just on the inside here, as you can see, where you would naturally hit someone with these blades. So being very careful not to getting anywhere we don't want to, and trying to keep it like it's got a sharp edge on it. And this shining silver is going to really help out, like it's going to be hitting the sun very naturally. Then once you've done that, we've completed our miniature, and it's just a matter of basing it. And with all that complete, we have finally finished painting up our male human monk from the Dungeons and Dragons WizKids range. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys, whether you want to follow along or you just enjoy me painting up some cool miniatures. But with all that out of the way, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.